How do you see that being addressed?
Well, look, it's clear from the review of our own workplace culture that there are widely recognised costs for complainants blowing the whistle on people who are doing the wrong thing in our workplace. And when you make a complaint in our organisation, traditionally you're regarded as a rat, dobbing on your colleagues, and in fact it exacerbates the harm to a level you can barely appreciate. And so most people who have suffered serious harm in our organisation have in fact avoided making a complaint and found other ways to try and deal with it. Well, that's meant that the impact of this harm, the prevalence of it and the ability of perpetrators to get away with it goes unnoticed and unremarked by us as an organisation, but it has a huge and detrimental impact on the people who are the targets of those behaviours. So the key piece for us in our organisation is to take the responsibility for addressing these behaviours away from the victim, and as an organisation take responsibility for doing that, shift our focus to supporting victims and take the accountability as an organisation for holding perpetrators to account, so that our approach is no longer complaint driven and complainant led, but instead is focused on doing no further harm to the victim, providing absolute and unquestioning support to the victim, and making sure that as a workplace we take responsibility for these behaviours. That's a very significant cultural shift for us, because traditionally it's all been about complaint driven approaches. We're now very much about victim-centric approaches and about organisational accountability and responsibility. This goes to a much deeper question around what does a professional reporting culture look like. And I know from my experience some years ago running ethical standards, when I first came into that role, the level of internal reporting by police against other police was actually at about 11%. After 4.5 years when I left that role, it had reached 40%. And the reason why we were able to drive that shift was because instead of the central complaints agency taking responsibility for addressing these issues and allowing local managers to handball that responsibility to a central complaints agency, we turned that on its head and made local workplaces and local managers accountable for addressing inappropriate behaviour as it emerged in the workplace. So that went from professional reporting rate of 11%, which is appallingly low, to about 40%. 40% of all complaints generated are generated internally, and that reflects the assumption of a professional reporting culture. We want to see that same shift in the workplace bullying, and particularly in the sex discrimination and harassment space. We want to come up with a cultural shift that sees workplaces taking responsibility for resetting local expectations and then holding one another accountable against that.
Yeah.